Coming up, a Sad Styles production.
Hello and welcome. My name is Mikey Aaronworth, signing on to the sign-off. We're here for another week, and here's a little peek behind the curtain. We actually pre-recorded quite a number of these podcasts to catch us up for the past 3 weeks or so we can't wait to get back in studio and back at it with some of our guests. I'm going to sit down again with my dad in the coming weeks, and we have some topics that we think everyone's going to be interested in, but I'd love to ask for some more questions. If you have questions out there and you'd like us to address them on the podcast, you can always email us, signoffpod@frameworth.com. If you're a new listener, I know we were running some ads on the Fan 590. Please feel free to reach out, join the community. You can find us on Twitter and social media. All that is written throughout the overlay over the course of the episode, and then we summarize it all at the end of the episode, especially if you're watching on YouTube. Now, here's a little bit of a trick of the trade. If you're new to podcasting or this whole universe, you may not know this, and even if you've been listening to podcasts, you might not know this either, but there comes a time when every podcast host just gets a little bit selfish and has a guest on for no other reason than the fact that they really like this person. Today's guest is like that, but it dovetails very nicely with the fact that he has an insight into a realm of sports that no one really knows about. The first thing that happens when you put your television on to watch a hockey game, for example, what do? They sing the national anthem. Now, these anthem singers are often notorious within the community of the people watching those sports for their personality or their look or their flavor. And John McDermott, who's the guest that we're going to be having on this week, has sung the anthem for tons of professional teams. He's got tons of albums, an enormous amount of experience doing charitable work, and all of this surrounds the idea of sports as a community, which is a theme that if you've been listening to this podcast, you know I absolutely love. Our story about how we met John McDermott, his stories that he tells us every time we see him, I absolutely love listening to this guy talk, and this is the first time I get to do it where we're recording it for posterity and you all get to listen to it. I don't want to say any more. I'm going to lead us into the interview portion of this episode. You guys are going to absolutely love this. We'll see you on the other side. And welcome back, everyone who's listening. We're joined by a longtime friend of both myself and Brian Aaronworth, who's joining me as well, president of Frameworth, John McDermott. He's sung the national anthem for the Boston Red Sox, Toronto Blue Jays, and Toronto Maple Leafs. He was a representative of the Toronto Sun after Conrad Black himself specifically heard him singing at a company party. He's recorded over 30 albums, 5-time Juno nominee, possibly, most importantly, a recipient of the Chaplain of the Chapel of Four Chaplains Legion of Honor Award for his service and support of veterans' causes. John, I'm assuming that's kind of one of your most shining awards that you have. But thank you so much for joining us, John. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I love listening to your stories when we're not recording anything. So now that we have the chance to kind of put this down permanently, I'm pretty pumped.
Great. No, it's great. Now, my excellent. You know, the one award that I'm really proud of is there's two actually. One came in 2000 and just before 9/11. We were with the Marine Corps in Boston, and I got the Congressional Medal of Honor Society's Bob Hope Award.
Wow!
And just a couple of years ago, I got the I think it's right here. Yeah, I'll show that to you. It's the Ted Williams Globe and Anchor Award.
Ted Williams, and what's that awarded for?
That comes from the United States Marine Corps.
That's amazing.
And I'm the only Canadian ever to receive the Congressional Medal of Honor Bob Hope Award and the Ted Williams Awards.
That's amazing. Now, what got you so involved in veterans affairs and doing work for the military?
Oh, in a nutshell, I guess back in it was 1994, November of 1994. I did my first show as a professional entertainer, solo in Toronto.
This was you were a Chippendale at this point, right?
I was, yes.
Yeah, okay.
I was pretty ripped. But again, you know, I can assure you that when Brian and I talk about being ripped, we're not talking about how we look.
Hey, I've seen you in the Platinum Lounge at the Air Canada Centre in Scotiabank at certain points.
We're ripped many times.
We're ripped in different ways.
1994, I did my first show in Toronto at the At Mirvish, the Mirvish Theatre in Toronto,
Right?
The old, the Royal Alex, and my dad it was the first time he'd ever seen me on stage as a pro, at my first show here, and he had a bit of an accident. He fell getting out of the car in front of the theater and rushed off to. They got him off to the hospital, and I was inside, and Bill Ballard was my manager, and Michael Cole was my manager. And Billy heard about the accident and didn't want anyone to tell me because he didn't want to slow the show down.
Wow. not for your well-being. It was for the show. Okay.
Well, yeah. But what he did know was he knew that I had told my dad that I was going to put a spotlight on him and my mother in the second half of the show.
Oh.
So Bill spent the next 45 minutes running around the theater trying to find someone who looked like my dad. So that the lights would turn on and you wouldn't know it wasn't your dad.
I
wouldn't know.
Wow.
So anyway, my dad's at the hospital. My brother went with him. My mother went. The doctor said, we'll keep you in for just to watch. And he said, screw this, I got to go. My son's on stage. And he got up and he checked himself out. My mom came and they get back and second half starts. And I say, ladies and gentlemen, I just want everyone to please welcome my mom and dad. And the spotlight hit him and I'm looking at him and I'm saying, what the hell's wrong with him? With this bandage wrapped around his head, whatever. Yeah. But he was there.
I like the idea that he shows up and his lookalike is sitting in his chair and he's like, I must have really hit my head because I could have sworn I was supposed to be there.
Yeah. I mean, but it was great because the first time, I mean, if we go, my career started all by accident, but I can remember talking to guys like Jim Cuddy and Tom Cochran and Stefan Macchio. And these are guys that have, I remember being at an event with Stefan Macchio and a guy walked up to him and said, he had just written a tune for Celine Dion. And it was a massive hit and it allowed him to sell his loft in Toronto and move to LA and get in with some serious writers and what have you. And we're at an event out near Midland or something. And someone walked up to him during the night and said, hey, congratulations on your overnight success.
Oh, wow.
I said, wow, overnight success.
Wow.
I guess you weren't in the Holiday Inn where you did 14,000 shows.
That's a long night. That's a very long night.
Sitting at a piano with no one in the room. So, congratulations on your overnight success.
This is just a couple examples.
I never had to do that.
Oh.
I never had to do that. That was why I was blessed. My story's kind of weird and it's weird and wonderful, I guess. But
that's kind of some of the questions that I have leading into this is kind of how you start off. How does a Scottish Canadian tenor with Irish roots end up singing the national anthem for one of the league's most prominent sports teams in the Toronto Maple Leafs for, I think, about 20 years you were involved in this, right?
Yeah, I started singing at the Gardens back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And, I was there. I was there in 93. But because Billy, I knew Bill Ballard, and we used to hang out at the hot stove on Wednesdays for rib night, and then take in a game, and I was working at the Toronto Sun at the time, and so there was that connection. With the Leafs and Andy Donato was a great pal, and Andy and we used to just the gang that was kind of in the scene at the time would hang around the hot stove, and it was the same crew, same people, and from time to time I'd belt out a tune in the hot stove. And
can I interrupt there for a sec, because that's become well known for you, John, both during and after your time singing the national anthem for the Toronto Maple Leafs. You will regularly go to the Platinum Lounge.
Depends how ripped we are.
Depends on how ripped you are. Yeah. How much you've been quote unquote working out. Yeah. In the meantime, and a crowd will form around you, and you call it belting out a tune. I call it you opening your mouth and the heavens shining upon us. You'll give us a melody. And now I want to be very, very clear here. If you've ever been to a party in your life and someone picks up an acoustic guitar and says, I'm going to sing you a song, that's when you leave. That's when you get out of there. But when you do it, the crowd is interested. The crowd stays to hear you sing, even sometimes when the game has already started, and then they'll make their way back to their seats after. How did you just think one day, I'm going to do this, and did you know it was going to go over well, or is this just something that you kind of sat on and hoped it was going to work?
No, I think, early on, I knew. I mean, I knew I had a voice. I was told by an old priest friend who was actually one of the Flying Fathers, Father McLean, and Don McLean. He passed away this year, not that long ago. But Don was a Flying Father, and he recommended me to St. Mike's Choir School, and actually, I think got me in by threatening them. So. And it worked out. I said, how'd you get me in there? Because he never told me. They had turned me down, and he went back. And because of the choir school, because I went to the choir school, I was only there for 2 years. But the closest friends I have today are the guys that were in my class in those 2 years at the choir school. And we get together twice a year, and this is our 51st year. We get together every year to have dinner at a friend's place, at Perry Delenti's place. Huh. And Perry hosts us, and we share our memories, and it was because of the connections with those guys that my music really did take off, because they wouldn't have let it go. Had I been somewhere else, I don't know if that would have been the fact.
Sure. A lot of support.
But McLean told me I had a voice and made sure that I was going to be accepted somewhere.
Is there kind of a parallel you can draw? One of the things we want to talk about, because there are a lot of sports podcasts out there where they talk about, the score of the game or just the athlete's history, et cetera, et cetera. We really do like to get into the behind the scenes, peek behind the curtains of sports and what goes on, to the point where a lot of people probably see the anthem singers go on and don't think much about how they've now integrated themselves with the culture of that sports team, which you very well did over the last 20 years. Do you see a little bit of a parallel between the way that people will come together to watch sports and the way that people would come together to, say, sing in a choir? Is there a similarity there that kind of builds that camaraderie?
Well, yeah, I think that we're all drawn to something that makes us feel good. We're all drawn to something that excites us.
Right.
And there's the parallel, and it certainly works. I mean, and when you can get both in the same space, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
To me, that it was really a ritual that I really miss it. Mm-hmm. I really miss it. And I miss it because of a number of things. I think that, I'm not a big fan of one. Would I love to be the only anthem singer for the Leafs? Not a chance.
Right.
Because the fans can relate to different things. Different players, different events, different anthem singers. They've all got their favorites, and so I think that's important to mix it up and keep it mixed up. And actually, the Leafs were one of the very last organizations to have 2 or 3 or 4 anthems. Well, they would get whoever's performing for Mervish.
Sure.
The lead singer in the musical down the street to come in and do an anthem. I just gave them an open card. If you need me, I'll come down.
Yeah.
And it was great. And so to do that, it allowed me an opportunity to make that evening something special for a fan. And
right.
So that was the idea.
If you think of it,
it was walking into the old Hot Stove or walking into the Platinum and belting out a tune before the game or at the intermission.
Yeah.
Or just going in to see faces and give them a thumbs up, and that all became part of it. And so that was the whole event for me. And so you've got both those things happening, and yeah, it was magic.
Amazing.
When you think of it, though, John, you go to the All-Star game every year, the hockey. When they have the All-Star games, they don't have the same entertainer there every year.
Right.
You look forward to who's going to be next. It's part
right.
of the show. I mean, you go to see a hockey game, but it's nice to see somebody different.
Right.
I just wanted to get into a couple of things that one, how John and I met.
Sure. I actually don't know this story.
So I think the first time I met John, other than seeing him, because I was a frequent fan at the games almost every Wednesday night, and I'd see John there. But I remember going out to Sidney Crosby's 21st birthday party, and I was invited out at in Halifax, or what was what's the name of the course, John?
Yeah, it was at Fox Harbor.
Fox Harbor,
Okay.
Beautiful course, and they had
Fox
a
Harbor.
21st birthday party, and all Sydney's friends and family were there. And then next thing I know, I see Sydney's aunt, who's all excited because she sees John walk in.
Right.
She's a huge
So
John
Brian,
McDermott fan.
Brian, let me tell you what happened there. You'll pick up right after
Yep.
this. So we're at the other end of the building, Mike, and it's Ron Joyce and Friends golf tournament. And so, all the East Coasters are there, and the Shaw brothers and everybody. And I'm sitting with a couple of pals, and I look up and I see these two guys walk in. And someone leans into me and says, "Holy shit, that's the kid."
The kid.
I said, "The kid?" I said, no, that's Mario Lemieux.
Yeah.
So Mario and the kid came in, and Sid walks over to our table and said, "Mr. McDermott, my parents know you're here. Could you come down and just say hello?"
Wow.
Are you kidding me? So I go down, and that's where Brian picks up. I'm
The
coming in the
Mutual
room.
Admiration Society. They love him. He loves them. I see Mario come in with. I mean, it was a pretty good who's who
Yeah,
at that event.
I would
And
imagine.
it was
Yeah.
a whole weekend that we flew in, and they played golf and had this big party. But John's standing there talking to his Sid's parents and his aunt was a big, huge fan. Well, they all were. I think you even stopped to sing too. You always stop.
Always find a way.
Danny boy, you got to get that out of John before he leaves the
sang
room.
at the table. I sang it at the table, and they were so happy. And Brian, the next morning, we were leaving because I think that was a Sunday or a Saturday night. We were leaving, and if you know Fox Harbor, you can walk directly from your condo across the lawn onto the tarmac and into the plane. So I'm walking across, and this golf cart goes by, and there's somebody yelling, and I look over, and it's Sid, and he's riding with somebody. I guess it was his agent, and he's waving, and so I waved back, and I got on the plane, and we left. Now this is how special that kid is. A year later, and I mean this, like a year later, I'm singing the anthem at the game. I'm standing just as the players come off the ice to go to the dressing room after practice, and I'm waiting on a couple of guys I know on the team. And Sid walks by, and as he gets to the dressing room, I looked up and I noticed he did a double take and looked back. Anyway, I'm just saying hello to everybody, and away we go. And I start walking around. I'm going around to see the referees, and someone comes up, taps me behind, and says, the kid wants to talk to you. And I said, "What? Who? The kid wants to talk to you." So I turn around, I walk back, and here's Sid standing outside. He's taking his shirt off, and he's standing there, and he says this. He says, "Mr. McDermott," respect, eh? Come on. He says, "Mr. McDermott, I never got to thank you. I tried to, but you just walked away." I said, "Thank me for what?" He said, "For singing at the table for my parents."
Oh.
He said, "Oh." He says, "You have no idea how happy it made them, and I wanted to thank you for that."
Oh, that's amazing.
You know,
This is a year after the fact. This kid never forgot.
No.
And I said, "Well, Sid, I thought you were just waving at me." No.
Sydney's like that. And then so I want to get into the next story. So
Sure.
I didn't know John at the time. I knew of his music, and it was a beautiful rendition. He always does the best Danny boy ever.
Oh, I agree.
And so
And
next-
Oh Holy Night. Don't sleep on Oh Holy Night.
We'll get into
you do a
his Christmas
fantastic version of that as
pageant,
well. Yeah.
So the next time,
One of the favorites.
the next time I hear from John, he gives me a call. We didn't really know each other at the time, and he said, I mean, he knew of me, I knew of him, and he said, "Pittsburgh's in town." I said, "Yeah, I know," and he said, "I wonder, I'm going to be doing the anthem, and I wonder if you have a blank, like an unsigned jersey that I could get Sydney to sign for a charity." John's so big into his philanthropic causes. But I know at the time how superstitious Sydney is,
Right.
and that he has this whole routine before the game, and you don't do certain things. So I thought, you know what, maybe it's best. I said, John, rather than you ask Sydney for the autograph, I'm just going to give you an autograph jersey so you can, do that without, and then maybe we'll see him after the game.
Right.
And so that's how I got to know John. He dropped in, got the jersey, donated it to his charity of choice. And then since then, we've become really good friends. And then I want to get into the next time. So after that, he felt obligated to do something for me.
Sure.
So he says, I want to introduce you to some people from when we mentioned them the other day.
I know where this is
Prince
going.
Edward
like
Island.
This, yeah.
They all come in for the hockey games once or twice a year.
The Tignish crew.
And John gets them all tickets. And we all meet in the hot stove. So take it from there, John, because the boys we've all become really close friends ever since then.
Yeah, well, the leader of the pack is a guy named Brian Hogan, whose heart's the size of
Prince Edward Island.
He's the size of PEI, and actually, but it's coincidental. But today is the beginning of lobster catch starts today in Tignish. But I invite them up. I bring them all up for game, and I do it twice a year. Once they usually try to come for the opener. Tickets are easy for that one, eh?
Yeah.
And then we do one in January just to break up the winter for them. And we would go to Gretzky's beforehand, and we were in Gretzky's, and Tom Bittoff had set up a table for us and a bar tab.
Tom would be the owner of the restaurant, yeah.
Along with Wayne.
Along with Wayne, yeah. You may have heard him.
So we drink there for a while and have something to eat. We then head to the building, and I know Tom's going to the game, so I said, Tom, I'll bring the guys up to the box. And you okay? And he says, yeah, sure. So we get to the game, we go into the box, and this is half an hour before the game starts, and Tom arrives, and Brian's quite upset. Brian says, I don't know what kind of operation you're running here, but they just cut me off. What do you mean cut you off? Well, cut me off. Well, how many beers have you had? He said, 4. The game hasn't started yet. Brian was setting the table, but we didn't tell him that he had. I can't even tell you how many he had at Gretzky.
These boys are a lot of fun, I'll tell you.
The girl was a bit concerned that not that he was drunk, he wouldn't even know it.
No.
But I don't think he would, but that he had 4 beers before the game. So there was
those East Coasters, anyway, they can handle it.
They can, yeah.
He continued his damage, but the guy is, what he gives back to the community down east. I went down to sing at a fundraiser to put a roof on the local church down there, and they raised enough money to do a number of things. And I became an honorary member of the Tignish community, and up until last year, there wasn't a year in the last 10 that I haven't been going down there to fish tuna and just spend time with these people. When you cross the bridge going on to PEI, you turn left. That's where you go, and you drive until you can't drive anymore, and you find yourself in one of the most amazing, beautiful communities that you'll ever be in. And not just for the geographic beauty of it, but the people themselves. It's just a spectacular.
They hosted us. Lori and I invited us out there. We were going out to the East Coast for
Lori being your wife.
My wife. Yeah.
The listener doesn't know everything about you, Dad.
Yeah.
Not everyone does.
We were going out for Sydney's backyard Stanley Cup party, and on the way we took a little detour and went to PEI. And I've never been hosted by a friendlier group of people. They picked us up. They drove us around the whole place, gave us a tour, took us out on their lobster boat. Then we had dinner at the golf club, and I brought them some Toronto Maple Leaf memorabilia.
Amazing.
And they served us lobster. It was an incredible evening.
I was going to say the two currencies, or there's 3 currencies that are the theme of this episode. There's the currency of song, which you give, John. There's the currency of seafood, which our Tignish friends give, and there's the currency of hockey and sports memorabilia in general, and that's what you're bringing to the table as well, Dad. But the common thing that surrounds this all is you guys met at a hockey game, you sang for a hockey game, Dad, you were working around that hockey game, And this, again, just shows how much more there is going behind the scenes. You know, it's not just about puck drop and pucks going in the net. There's an entire community and culture behind it. And one thing that I love, and I think the reason why, John, you endeared yourselves so well towards the fans is because you really embody that feeling of community. You mentioned the church. You mentioned working for the veterans' causes. Everything you do seems to be about giving back and incorporating. You know, when you start to sing at the bar, this isn't just about you showing off the fact that you can sing. And that's the difference between you and the guy who picks up an acoustic guitar at a party. It's about, hey, everyone, stop what you're doing, turn around, and let's all engage in this one thing together, which coincidentally is exactly what we do in the world of sports as well. And it's things like this that have, as I mentioned, endeared you towards not just the fans, but also the players and the officials themselves. Now, I want to read a quote from a friend or companion of yours, Ray Scapinello, who said about you. He said two things. The first one that I want to go, it's a little bit long, so bear with me. He's talking about you here. And this is a story I absolutely love. Or he'd rush in looking for a tie. He's talking about before you're going to sing. Or he'd rush in looking for a tie before going back out there to sing the anthem. He'd stop ushers, security people, anyone wearing a tie that he might borrow. And one time, the tie he borrowed clashed so horribly with the tartan jacket he was wearing that no one knew how to tell him. Tartan, for the listeners who don't know, is essentially like the plaid that you would see in a kilt. In a kilt, essentially. So out he went to sing the anthem, and when he finished, I skated over and told him to lose the tie. We had a drink and a good laugh over that after the game. John, do you remember looking back at pictures of you wearing the tie with the tartan jacket?
Yeah, vividly.
Vivid is a good way to put it, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, Ray. I used to. My routine was just to. I would, the first place I'd go when I got down, I'd just go and say hi to everybody in the bar. Leave my jacket and then scoot around, grab my tickets, and then I'd keep going and go around and hang out with the referees for a little bit, and that was the routine for forever. And yeah, I mean, there was one time when I wasn't singing the anthem. It was St. Patrick's Day, and I wasn't supposed to sing, but our good friend who passed away a few years ago was singing and got stuck on the Gardner. Billy Ballard and I had been celebrating St. Patrick's Day quite and we arrived at the hot stove and continued to celebrate. And I got a tap on the shoulder from someone and said, "John, Michael Burgess is stuck on the Gardner. Can you sing the anthem?" And I said, "For sure." And that was the night that Ray had me barge in looking for a tie. I did get out to the ice and I did sing the anthem, but a couple of things happened. Joe Bowen on air said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we are watching and listening to John McDermott sing the national anthem." And I can tell you, I ran into John McDermott and his associate, Mr. Ballard, earlier this afternoon. And it is not only amazing that he is singing the anthem, it is nothing short of a miracle that he is upright while doing so. And I could see some of the, because I started singing the anthem and I sang it like this. "Oh, say, can you see?" Bye. And the Globe and Mail quote the next day was, "Leafs won, and thankfully the anthem finished before the 11 o'clock news."
I got to tell you one other thing about John. So if you've ever experienced, what you want to do is experience a game with John, and it's legendary. I had the great honor and pleasure of being in Detroit Stadium with Gordie Howe, walking around in the bowels of the arena, Joe Louis, and I've also been walking and watching how he's adored by everybody and he stops to talk to everybody. I've been in the Spectrum with Bernie Parent and watched how he walks and stops and talks to people, and they just love him.
Right.
And right in that league is John McDermott. If you ever have the pleasure of being in one of the arenas with John. He walks around. Everybody knows him. He's got a whole pocket full of CDs that he hands out to the ushers and usherettes.
Lots of pockets in those tartan jackets you wear.
He owns that building, and he owns it for a good reason, because he is so friendly and so courteous and so giving to everybody in the building that they just love him. He can go anywhere without a ticket.
Yeah.
Upstairs, suites, anything he wants. Hey, John? I've had more fun
Brian,
with that.
You came on a run with me one night where usually it's Brian. I usually go to the game with Stemmel. Brian and I usually go together if I get tickets, and we never sit in our seats because Brian knows what I'm going to do. I'm going to get us somewhere into a box or something like that, or we'll watch it in the hot stove or watch it in the Platinum. But what we do is we go to the highest, furthest point in the building, in the back rows up top, and I look for an adult with a kid. And it could be a mother with her daughter, or a father with a son, or whatever. Just an adult with a kid. And I try to make sure it's as young a child as possible because it's probably their first game.
Right.
And it's probably their birthday. It may be a night out with one of their parents.
Sure.
And I walk over and I'll say, "Can I see your tickets?" And I'll say, "Well, there's been a mistake. These are your tickets. You're sitting, 8 rows behind the Leaf net tonight."
Ooh.
And the organist wants to meet you. And then the referees want to meet you. And the guy who rides the Zamboni wants you to sit in the Zamboni seat, okay?
Oh, wow.
And I take this kid down, and I stop, and we talk and visit our guy on the organ. The kid gets his picture taken with him and Brian Stemmel. We then get in the elevator and go down, and we're in the underground, and we stop and knock at the referee's dressing room, and the referees, 99 times out of 100, I'll say they'll come out and say hi to the kid. They're not dressed yet, and what I'll do is put him up in the Zamboni seat, and he'll get up there and get a picture. And then by the time we do that, the referees are pretty much ready to go.
Yeah.
And they'll come out and stand with the kid and get his picture taken.
That's awesome.
And they give him a puck. And then we walk around, and I take them around to that point just before the Platinum Lounge where you walk into the alleyway, and I turn them over to the two girls there. And they of course know what's going on, and they just take them to their seat.
That's amazing.
And then I'll call Ian McMillan up in the production room and say, "Ian, they're in my seats tonight. Can you get them on the big screen just before the end of the second?"
Oh, amazing.
Sure enough, the kid's up there, and you can just see this kid explode, that he's up on the big screen. And and I've done that I can't remember the last time I sat in my seats.
What do you call that? Because you have a name for that, don't you?
Oh, the McDermott move of the game.
The McDermott move of the game, baby. I love that. That's a great idea.
I've got a similar story that I experienced firsthand, which was Jonathan Taves and his mom and dad came into town, played some golf with his dad Brian, and then we went for dinner, and then they went to their seats, and we went. But we agreed to meet in the Platinum Lounge. Seems like a common theme, doesn't it?
Yeah, right.
Afterwards, and John was there.
The Platinum Lounge, in case you're listening and you don't know, is essentially around where the Platinum row of seating is. You have a lot of people congregate to the bar in that area.
Right.
I believe it is just called the Platinum Lounge. I don't know if it has. It's not like the hot stove.
But when John goes in there, it's like the Red Sea parting.
Yeah.
He goes right to the bar. They know him. They got his beer ready or whatever it is. So anyway, we go in there after the game, and Andre and Brian Taves come in, and we're waiting for Jonathan to come in and meet us after the game. And there's a little girl there with her father. I don't know if you remember this, John, but I believe
I remember it very well. Brett.
She had cancer, was it, or was?
Yeah.
Anyways, John just immediately latched on to this girl who didn't really know who he was, other than she remembered him singing the anthem or whatever it was at the time. But he just. Like, we're all there talking and enjoying, and he's sitting there talking to the little girl and her parents. Her dad, I think, was there with her.
Yeah.
Anyway, he just stayed with her, started talking to her. She was a Chicago fan, too.
Yep.
He introduced her to Jonathan's mom and dad. She was just in awe.
Yeah.
And then I believe you came up to me and said, we got to get this girl an autograph from Jonathan.
Right.
And so he arranged all that. I made sure that it got sent afterwards because we didn't have one.
Sure.
We weren't sure whether Jonathan was going to join us in the bar. It's not a real cool thing for the players to do afterwards. And then John,
more so than in the intermission, at least.
John takes his glass, and because she says she loved his singing, so he takes his glass, tinks it, and says, the whole bar stopped. And John said, I think I'll sing the national anthem here, and sits on the bar and does not the national anthem, the Danny Boy,
yeah.
which stops the whole bar.
Yeah.
And everybody and the photos are going, and the film's going, and this little girl was sitting right beside him and just taking it all in. She's never had a day like that.
And yet, if someone's watching from home, they're watching the hockey game. They turn it on. Right. It's early enough for puck drop, and they see you come out and sing the national anthem. That element of you as an ambassador for the team and for the sport isn't seen. It's a story that goes perfectly with what we try to do here, and that's to show how deep the roots of each of these members of the sport community go. I mean, it's way more than just what's shown in the finished product. It's more than pucks and nets, as I like to say.
It's like a big family, Mikey. It's I mean, we're all part of that big family, don't you think? I mean, Brian, it really is a unique experience when you get up, but it's almost like, it's family dinner twice a week, and you're getting together with your family, and they really do become a part of your life, and the stories and the memories that you create.
For sure.
They're fantastic. They really are. I mean, a lot of stories we can't talk about are really the ones that are very near and dear to us, but.
We'll see if we can tease a story or two out of you in a second, though. I do want to bring up one more quote from Ray Scapinello, and then I think my dad's going to follow up with a question. But he mentioned that there's a specific rule that no one is allowed to go hang out with the referees 60 minutes prior to game time, and there are a plethora of reasons why that would be, of course. However, there's one exception to that rule, notably, and it's known by everyone, that you are allowed to go and hang out with the referees before the game. You don't play sides, you don't play favorites, you're not there to influence anyone, but the referees not only are okay with you being there, but in Ray's case specifically, enjoys having you there because it's the only time, he says, that he can take his mind off of the game and get some breathing room before he gets out there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's great. It was a lot of fun, and they all have all those different personalities, I tell you, in that room. I mean, I remember the night I had to sing the anthem. I had to change in the referee's dressing room, and so I ran in there and I borrowed a suit from one of the waiters.
This is a common story. of you borrowing clothes.
And it was the one night. It was the one night that this ever happened. That Jim Gregory, who was the head of the
GM,
head of the zebra community, he was walking into the dressing room as I was staggering out of the dressing room. And he says to me, "What the are you doing in here?" And I said, "I was just giving the guys their rides." And he was, I think the guys heard me, and you could hear the chuckles going on. But yeah,
that's amazing.
Just a number of wonderful times that we had.
I think because we kind of glossed over it in the beginning, but I did mention that you had sung the anthem for the Boston Red Sox as well, and I know my dad has some questions about that because he's
well, no, I just didn't want to forget this because as big as John is here in Toronto, he gets invitations out to sing at Fenway, which. One day, I've never been to Fenway, so one day he's going to drag me down there when things open up.
Okay.
Well, and also he's a member of the Royal and Ancient, but we'll talk about that in a second. But John, regale us with some of your stories from Boston.
Well, I think with the Red Sox and the Bruins, one of my favorite Bruins stories is Mark Lalama is my keyboard player, and I guess it was a couple of years ago. I know the guy that's the security guy down at the Gardens, and so we managed to get ourselves some tickets and get in, and we were there was these two kids sitting behind us, probably maybe 6, 7 years old, desperate Leaf fans, and by the end of the first, I think it was like 5-0 Bruins, and so I disappeared and came back with a puck for each of them. And gave a puck to the two kids, and they didn't care if it was 12-0.
Kind of a consolation at that point, yeah.
They lit up because they had pucks. And the parents were thrilled because their kids weren't complaining anymore.
Saved the day, probably a whole road trip, yeah.
But it was St. Patty's Day, and the Bruins always give me a St. Patty's Day shirt with my name on it. And at Fenway, the Fenway, for some reason. Whenever they do the Canadian Anthem and the Blue Jays are there, it usually gets kind of chop a block, And I remember doing a show about an hour and a half away from Fenway out in Worcester, and that was on I was doing a show on the Sunday, and the guy who does the organization, Danny Lyons, who organizes the anthems and pre-game stuff, heard I had a show on, and he called and said, "Is there any way you can get in here to sing the anthem?" He says, it's been butchered for 2 nights in a row. So I drove down, did the anthem, went back, and then did my show. And I've been back a number of times, but my favorite was Big Poppy's last game at Fenway was against the Blue Jays.
Right.
And he got to pick a lot of the stuff, and that including who would sing the national anthem.
Oh, wow.
And Mary Jane Blige sang the U.S. anthem, and
wow,
and I got
nice
the call
company.
from to do the anthem. And,
that's a good call to get. That's
great. And I came away with some really nice memorabilia from Poppy and a great picture.
That send off was
one of my favorite
enormous.
shots. Actually, when they were in Toronto, I was doing the anthem at a Jays game in Toronto, and of course they're pretty stuck up down at the Sky Dome. Call it what you want. What they do is they have you stand in a little box, an invisible box next to the railing, and you can't move from there until you're ready to walk out and sing the anthem. And I can hear Poppy. He's going, "Hey, Johnny! Come here. I said, no, I can't leave here." So he walks over and he picks me up under his arm, carries me to the dugout. And the girl that's in charge is saying, "You can't do that." And I said, "You tell him."
Yeah, I'm not telling him. He has control over my life and body right now, yeah.
So the photographer, and I can't remember his name, Chuck
Kochman.
Chuck Kochman,
yeah,
good
so
friend of
Chuck
Frameworth.
sees me and he turns around and clicks one of the best shots. And
Well,
I'm
you've
telling
got
you,
that
it's one of
shot.
my
I've never
favorites.
seen it.
Of Poppy and I just standing in the dugout.
Do you have that shot? I'd love you to send that to us, and we can add that to the video
I'll
if
send
you
it
still
to you,
have
sure.
it. Yeah.
I'm surprised it doesn't come in here for framing, or was it already done?
Oh, a little conflict
No,
of
it
interest.
hasn't been done.
No, there
So
you go.
we're-
That just cost me.
We're looking. We got about 5 minutes or so left, so we should start winding down. Before we do, I have a quick question to you, for you. In terms of your life's accomplishments, what would you rank higher? Singing the anthem for Poppy's send-off game at Fenway, or recording the theme song for My Bloody Valentine, the horror movie from 1981?
Oh, Mikey. Jesus. Well, no. I mean, obviously, my two things that I'm most proud of. There's a lot of things I'm proud of. I'm very proud of the fact, singing at Poppy's deal. But I'm most proud of the fact that I've been able to surround myself with people that have a philosophy that I have, and that is a mutual respect and admiration for each other's gifts, and in doing that, creating McDermott House Canada in memory of my father. My father was a veteran. We didn't elaborate on that earlier. And his only request to me in November at that show in 1994, after the show, he pulled me aside and he said, "Son, you might be good at this. And if you are, promise me that you will do two things. You'll give back to Canada and you'll give back to the community who gave us this country, the veteran." And again, a number of years ago, with my good friend Brian Stemmel, the idea came to us that there was a space in the Veterans Wing at Sunnybrook Hospital, in the K Wing, in the Veterans Wing, that was available and needed renovation, and it needed $3.6 million to do it and turn it into a state-of-the-art palliative care unit, and we've done that.
Wow,
that's amazing.
That's what we want. And now we're going to focus on how we can help with bring medical care to the northern communities, and to deal with mental health. It's going to be a major issue in the coming years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if anything has brought that to light more than anything, it's got to be COVID, right? I mean, the number of people
hanging with Brian, that's one of my favorites.
Oh, that's no fun.
that never gets tired.
It's whenever you're down there, it's the usual suspects. They're all there.
Now, John, do you have, for anyone who's listening who may not have heard any of your albums before, do you have one of the, I believe, 31 albums that you have? Do you have one specific one that you would recommend someone checks out to get a good sense of who you are?
Oh, yeah. Well, obviously, I think the first one has always been the Danny Boy album is one of my favorite albums.
Yeah.
My Christmas Memories is one of my favorite albums, Christmas Memories album. And the one that we're doing now, we're just finishing up a new album due out in the fall, and it's dedicated to my parents. It's called Somewhere in Me There's You. And working with, and I'm telling you, this album, I'm working with Mark Lallam on it. It is the best stuff I've ever done.
Mark, you mentioned, is your keyboardist?
I couldn't be happier, yeah.
Yeah.
I will
Let's
say
do
this
again when the album's out.
I will say this. John, for many years, was inviting me to his Christmas pageant, Christmas concert that he does every year. And for various reasons, we couldn't make it. I usually take off a little early sometimes and go on a cruise or whatever. But finally, we ended up going. And you were there.
I was there,
took the family there. And it has become a tradition ever since, aside from COVID. What a beautiful way to start the Christmas season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I grew up with a Jewish background, and still our family is it celebrates everything in every religion. But what a beautiful way to start, and what a great concert. And now everybody asked me, like last year or the year before, they said, "Are we going? Are we?" That's the evening. So, yeah, it was great.
I have one quick story that I want to tell, just to kind of summarize the kind of person that we're speaking with right now in John. The first time I met you actually was at the Platinum Lounge. Surprise, surprise. You were there. I was there. And we had at Frameworth planned a sale the following day, a big sale, a Christmas sale, I believe, that we do once a year. And I knew I had to be up early the next day, but I was having a great time at the Platinum Lounge because I was with great company. And you and I kind of hit it off. I went to school out in Halifax, so we talked a little bit about living out east. And you had mentioned the person who tailors your suits, those gorgeous tartan suits that you wear. Mm-hmm. And we got talking about that, and I thought that was fantastic. And you said to me, as two people who are just drinking and having a good time, you said to me, "I'm going to give you one of my pairs of pants from my suit. I really think you'd like it." And I'm in university at this point, and I'm assuming that's like every other drunken university conversation I've ever had, where we never talk about it again. And the next day, I'm awake, hungover, at the sale at Frameworth, and you come strutting in through the door, looking as though you slept 12 hours and were just fresh as the day. And you tossed, before I could even, you tossed the pants at me. I still have them to this day. I could not believe that you remembered. So your story, to bring this full circle of Sidney Crosby meeting you, remembering that he wanted to thank you and not getting able to do so, and staying true to their word and finding a way to follow through. A lot of people have the same type of perspective on you, and that's just one small example of that. So, John, before we go, do you have anything you want to plug apart from the upcoming album? Anything you're working on?
No, we're just doing, the band and I are doing virtual concerts at johnmcdermott.com. We have a Mother's Day show coming up and a Father's Day show that we're going to be putting up. So, yeah, if you just visit johnmcdermott.com, you can download a show to watch with your family, or watch with your mother, and same thing for Father's Day.
Perfect.
But,
highly
other than
recommended.
that, everybody should just stay safe, and let's get all through this together.
Definitely.
the sooner we get through it, the sooner we can start spending time together.
That's a good point.
That's important.
And that's all I'm hoping for.
I would just like to say that if you ever have the good fortune of being at a hockey game and seeing John, go up. He will always have time to say hello. In fact, he loves it. He doesn't watch the game most of the time because he's always moving around. Go up and say hello and introduce yourself. You will have you'll walk away with a smile, guaranteed.
Absolutely. And hopefully you'll walk away from this podcast with a smile between John and ourselves, maybe putting that on your face. And once again, thank you so much, John, for joining us. For Brian Aaronworth, president of Frameworth, and myself, Mikey Aaronworth, this is us signing off. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we made it to the end of yet another episode. Thanks again so much for joining us. You can find videos of all of our episodes on YouTube by searching the Sign Off Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Frameworth Sport or Instagram at Frameworth Sports. And hey, if you're not sick of me yet, you can find me on Twitter over at Retrograde Mikey, or you can always find me embarrassing myself over on Instagram at Aaronworth. The Sign Off is a proud product of Fadoo Productions and Sad Styles Productions. Executive producers Mikey Aaronworth and Andrew Bascom. Until next week, this is Mikey Aaronworth, signing off.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
Get into it.